So I'm back with another video about the 2000 Avalon Hill Hasbro game, Star Wars The Queen's Gambit, that was released in the wake of 1999's The Phantom Menace. If you watched my previous video, I did an unboxing of a shrink-wrapped original copy of this game, showed you the components, and as promised, I wanted to show initial setup of the game and walk you through some of the components in more detail to see what this game looks like, totally set up and ready to play. So I'll get started with that. So as you can see, this game is what we would call nowadays an Ameritrash game, highly thematic, lots of plastic components, lots going on in this game. It's a real, as they say, table hog. This is probably about 3.5, almost 4 feet of table space with a couple different battles going on. So over here you have the battle on the surface of the Naboo with the droid army on this side and the Gungan army deployed over on this side. You have the Naboo Palace battle here in the center. It's fought on 3 different levels with the viceroys in the throne room being protected by battle droids, and down to the 2nd level also. And then down on the 3rd level, you have the Naboo Palace Guard, these purple figures, as well as a red and purple Amidala character. As you remember from the movie, one was a body double, one was the real one, and there's a hidden aspect to the game. You also have a character of Panaka, who's the commander of the Palace Guard, who figures into this game also. Over on this side, also at the Naboo Palace, you've got the famous fight between Darth Maul, Qui-Gon, and his Padawan learner Obi-Wan Kenobi. And there's a dual aspect of the game. And then walking around on this side, you've got Anakin Skywalker in his fighter taking off from his hangar and going out and fighting through all the droid army in space and hopefully getting to this last destination and destroying the ship above the planet that's controlling the droid army, which once that's done, shuts down the ability for all the droids to function and fight on the map. In terms of components, there's a lot of plastic. Typical of Hasbro games. They're fairly well sculpted in plastic. Some of the figures are kind of rubbery and not such hard plastic. And from a preservation standpoint of a game that's over 20 years old now, I do see in unboxing this original copy, some rubberiness. I've got this one Palace Guard who's kind of bent and doesn't quite stand up straight, and the same thing goes for Panaka here. He's kind of bent. And so over time, I think this is a challenge for some of these older games with a lot of plastic components. What's going to be the effect of age over time for these components? The game is, like I said, fought over these multiple battlefields. Each side has a set of cards that has to do with, so for lack of a better term, the good guys, you've got a series of cards to draw on that are the Theed Palace here on Naboo, and then you have a similar deck of cards for this battlefield over here. Again, all very highly thematic with artwork from the game and in the movie. And then on the same side for the droid army, you've got cards for the battlefield, and you've got cards for the Theed Palace. One other thing before I just briefly mention about like how this game works, a couple other components. Each side has these nice reference boards which talk about how each one of the different forces move, attack, how they defend, what their range is, and what damage, if any, they do. And there's one of these like little handy boards for each one of the sides, each one of the forces, and everybody performs, moves and fights and defends in a slightly different way. So again, like I keep saying, there's a lot going on in this game. Another little component, there's a first player marker with a droid on one side and our favorite Gungan Jar Jar Binks on the other side. This is just to mark as play goes on which side is going first each round. And then finally, there's a whole bunch of dice. We're used to custom dice in games nowadays, often come cast and painted. These were all blank dice, which came with sheets of stickers to be applied in different ways. And you've got different strength attack dice. So these green attack dice are used for the Jedi and Darth Maul battle, because not only do they have hits and blocks, double blocks, and so on. You also have red hit dice with single hits as well as double hits and then misses. You've got some regular six-sided dice that has to do with the Anakin Starfighter battle and that movement there. And so on each one of these reference cards, it shows which kind of dice are thrown both for attacks and for defense markers. So as the battle goes back and forth, you're using these different dice, both defense and attack. The way the game basically works, and I'll try to get this played in full at some point. You've got the 2 decks of cards at the beginning of the game. Each player takes 5 from each one of the battlefields to make a hand of 10. You have 10 cards, and then once you look at your cards, you choose 4, and there's a bit of a programming element to this. So you would say, this is going to be my 4th card I play, this is going to be the 3rd card I play, this is going to be the 2nd card I play, and this is going to be the 1st card I play. So then each player goes back in turn and says, okay, here's my 1st card, and I play this card, and then on the other side they go until you get through your hand of cards. And then in the second round going forward, you also then get the choice of where do you want to draw cards for. So somebody might decide to draw more for the battlefield or more for the palace and the space battle up here. And so over time, you're building up a hand of cards, always up to 10, programming 4. Also in this spot in the middle, depending on certain things that are achieved in the game, like if you destroy a particular unit or something, you get bonus cards, and those go into the middle, and those go into your hand then too, to be played. And so there's opportunities over time that you're playing more than 4 cards in a round, because you've got these bonus cards that are going actually to the bottom of your program deck in each turn. So when you look at a couple of sample cards, each card is giving you options on whether to activate, a certain type of unit or number of units on a particular place. So this is a battlefield card, and so you'd be able to activate Gungans over here. Over here is an example of a Theed Palace, and so you're either, in this case, activating Panaka or Panaka and some palace guards. So again, you're making choices, or here's one where you're activating Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, or the choice of palace guards. So you're making choices throughout the game on where you're going to concentrate, where are you going to try to get something done that round. There's certain impacts, again, I said abilities to earn additional bonus cards, and so on. Most of the regular units, the unnamed units, like the palace guards and the droid army and so on, might just have like 1 life, but then there are characters that have these like life tracks. So here, Panaka has 5 life before he's destroyed. And then here's your two different versions of Queen Amidala or Padme. And at the beginning, the player designates which one's going to be the real one. In this case, I've made it the purple figure, this one right here, and which one's going to be the decoy, which is right here. And so that's the red one over here in the palace. And then as they take damage and then eventually eliminated, and the figure is removed from the game. A couple more things. So Anakin tries to advance through these different swarms of droid fighters. When that happens, the droid player throws gray dice, covers up a couple spaces depending on if they get hit. So this is telling us the droid player gets to throw 2 dice. In this case, they get 1 hit. They choose to cover one of these non-droid ship spaces. The other one is a miss. And then Anakin would roll 2 red dice, and here it's a 10, and so he's able to find an empty space here. The 10 space doesn't have droid ships on it, and it doesn't have the dice covering it, which effectively becomes another droid ship. And so in this case, Anakin would then advance to the next level, and he's just trying to move up this ladder and eventually get to this space to destroy the droid ship in orbit that then shuts down basically all the droids on the planet here. The droid player has the option with certain cards to add stronger fighters to different spaces. So in this case, you'll see now they're throwing 4 dice, and so there's a possibility of covering more of these spaces. And so this is the droid army sending out more ships to try to keep Anakin from reaching his final destination. So that kind of works in that way. For the Jedi and the Sith fighting, they work a little differently. They each have 12 movement, and so they're able to break up their activations into moves and attacks, so mixes of that. So they could move, attack, move away, or one could move, attack, move back, move in again and attack, or just like stay put and attack in full. So again, these pieces work a little differently than the rest of the game. The droids and the palace guards are fairly straightforward. They're just concerned with line of sight, so they can't shoot through other figures. There's some of these pillars on the map, so they can't shoot, through a pillar or something like that. So like this droid couldn't shoot at this palace guard, but he could shoot at these over here because this intervening terrain. If you saw the movie, which I'm sure most people have, you've also got these window spaces. There's some cards that allow palace guards, once they're in these window spaces, to move up by using cables to fire and move on up, because the eventual palace victory is based on the palace guard having more pieces in the throne room than the droid army does. So palace guard really needs to get up here, eliminate these droids, fight through all these other droids, and then have an overwhelming number of pieces. The 2 viceroys are never actually killed. They can't move. They're just kind of there as a flavor and in the game. There's also at every corner, if the characters aren't advancing through the window cabling, they are able to advance up and down these stairs, and there's a mechanic to actually attack from one level to another too. On the planet, again, if you've seen the movie, there's this defensive screen that's up at the beginning, and you've got these 2 large beasts, I can never remember what they're called, Fombas, who have these little generators on the top of them that are actually powering the shield here. It limits what the droid army can do while the shield is still up. Once one of these is destroyed, the shield comes down, and that's when the droid army can really bring to bear some of their stronger tanks and their troop transports to advance. Droid army also, there are cards allowing them to recycle eliminated droids back onto the table. So this becomes like a compounding attack. And so it's really critical that Anakin shuts down the droid ship up in orbit, because then that effectively eliminates the ability for any of the droid army, both in the palace and out in the field, to fight. And of course, you've just got your other Gungans, including 3 catapults at the rear, some mounted Gungans, and some foot Gungans. Gungans do not recycle, unlike the droid army. And so that's the game, in a nutshell. You're making choices by programming your cards, trying to guess on what your enemy is trying to do each round, what you're going to try to do to counteract that, where you're going to focus your energy. Are you focusing on the battlefield? Are you focusing on the duel between the Sith and the Jedi? Are you fighting up in space? Are you doing a combo of those things? So for a very toy-like game of the era, there's actually a lot going on in this game. So I'm really glad that I eventually punched this game, got it set up, got a quick look through the rules. The rules are fairly straightforward, not very long. It's got detail on who gets set up where. In the first couple of pages, it's actually 5 pages of setup before you actually get to the gameplay. And I think it's best at 2 players, but there's also a 4-player option. And then there are some examples of play for different kinds of things in the back. So again, Avalon Hill, published by Hasbro in the year 2000, The Queen's Gambit. Much beloved game by collectors, Star Wars fans, and gamers. And I can't wait to give this one a play.